Hello, friend.
How's it going?
Good. You can hear me this time. I didn't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm Kayla,
And I'm Allie.
and this is
Unofficial
Unofficial HR.
This episode, we're talking about multitasking and what that really is.
Yeah. So you had brought up doing an episode about multitasking because you were watching that show on Netflix, The Mind Explained.
Yeah.
And then you were telling me about it, and I watched it too, and it was really interesting. And some of the stuff I feel like I knew or thought I knew, and then other stuff I didn't know at all.
The thing that stuck out for me with that show was what multitasking really is. Like back in 1960,
Oh.
they brought up the word multitasking. So that's when it was actually used, I guess. And it was affiliated with computers. So the fact that nowadays, when you're trying to get a job, most of these jobs are asking you, do you have like this multitasking? What's the word I'm looking for?
Let's say it's a skill. I've seen it listed as like qualifications. What makes you good to work here? I looked at a bunch of job posts actually. They pepper it in all kinds of different ways. Some I've seen they literally will just be like, you're a multitasker. Other ones like word for word, you can manage communication threads across multiple internal teams and juggle priorities. Sounds like kind of a lot.
Okay.
High attention to detail with a proven ability to manage multiple priorities simultaneously. So you want me to be super detail oriented and also be multitasking like crazy. How does that work? And then ability to navigate a fast moving dynamic early stage startup environment. Have you ever seen that meme where it's like, did I kill a plant? Or did the plant not have what it takes to thrive in this fast paced environment?
Oh my gosh, no, that's funny.
Someone named Sarah C. Lazarus on RIP Twitter, now X. She's the source of that. I thought that was so funny. I think about it all the time.
The crazy part is, even the documentary said computers aren't even made to work in that multitasking kind of dynamic. So for people to even ask us to do things like multitask, it's kind of like not a realistic expectation. Like you're asking us to be robots, but not even robots or computers can even do this.
Yeah, even computer wise, if you think about like the processing power of a computer, the more windows you have up, the more tasks you have the computer doing, it's still running off the same overall processing power bucket. It's just being
Yep.
divided among all those things. And the more you open, the more that it gets weighed down. And then that's when your computer freezes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what burnout is.
But like if your computer freezes, it's because it's burnt out.
It's burnt out. It needs a nap.
It needs a nap. It needs to update.
Yeah.
That's a great way to reflect that, actually. That's funny.
I didn't really catch in the documentary like why people started being asked to multitask more. If it was just the fact that we got more technology and then we could do more things. So we just tried to fit more into the same amount of time in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the emails and now like Slack and stuff like that, it's just the constant bombardment of tasks that then people are trying to keep up with.
Like the first freaking episode was like about focusing. And I shit you not, I was sitting there and it asked you to watch a person jump on a freaking trampoline. So
Uh-huh.
I was actively watching this person, and I swear on my freaking life, that person only jumped and flipped 3 times. But towards the end, they were like, the number is actually 11. And I'm just like, there's no freaking way.
Did you see the gorilla?
No.
Okay, I didn't either. I did get the 11 times, but I didn't notice anything else.
And I was paying attention to honestly the thing that was right in front of me. I was trying
Hmm.
not to, but I was like, oh, well, I can look at this while I look at that. My brain is like, well, I can count this, but I can also like look at this over here.
I thought it was really interesting how at the end they were like, more or less, oh, it doesn't really matter what you counted, whether you got 11 or not. Maybe you should be asking yourself, why are you bothering to do what we're saying in the first place? You could just watch this however you want and see that there's a gorilla that literally walks into the screen a couple seconds in, never even noticed it. I didn't notice it anywhere in that whole documentary. And there were like other times where it would just like stick its head out places too.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, didn't see that.
And then they also bring up, like, at work, you're sitting at your desk. Not only do you have all these things like popped up on your computer that you still have to task out, you also have those little red bubbles of Teams messages and Outlook emails and stuff like that. I get kind of anxious, I'm not going to lie, when I see all of those red things. I'm definitely a clicker and I think I'm going to get back to it, but I don't. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call and then somebody's like, hey, I sent you this like 15 minutes ago. Why haven't you answered me back? It looks like you've seen my message. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I feel that I get the like notification anxiety also, which is why I'm like so anal retentive about having no notifications ever. Like I do the inbox zero thing on everything. Like it
Yep.
bothers me so bad if there's a notification somewhere. But realistically, you can't remember all the stuff being assigned to you or asked of you.
Mm-hmm.
My strategy that's worked to help me manage whatever is being expected of me at work, at least, is generally to write stuff down. So I have a list somewhere for work. It's in like an Asana board. At home, I have a paper list of like shit that I need to do at some
Mm-hmm.
point in the near future, like your calendar.
Oh yeah, my calendar saves my freaking life, man. It's like a planner. I need to buy a planner again. Like physically writing it down and checking it off. I don't
Mhm.
know what it is. I don't know why, but I find myself being more accountable that way with certain tasks and being successful in accomplishing those things. And because like my memory's shit, man. Like another thing with multitasking and stuff is like memory issues because there's just so many things you have to do in a short span of time. Going back to our previous episode about burnout and stuff, like that's real, like complete memory loss of things. And then you're getting reprimanded. You're doing a job that requires 5 people to do. Like that's what a lot of these jobs want you to do now. If the word multitasking is affiliated with it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I feel like when you are getting assigned a ton of stuff like that, it's not usually, although I've had it be, it's not usually all coming from one person. Because if it were all coming from one person, I think they would be a little more aware of like, oh, I've assigned this many things to this person today. They're probably pretty busy. But when it's coming in from different departments that like aren't talking to each other and you're just kind of in the middle of all this stuff, and then each person assigning you those things is at the same time like, why isn't this done in 5 minutes? Why isn't this done when I sent it to you an hour ago? And there's like not a great system of communication. That just makes it
Yeah.
even more stressful, also.
So not only does it create memory problems, but it also can create communication issues in a work environment. How crazy is that? Like the
Yeah.
expectation of being a quote unquote multitasker. We are not computers. And that's what I came to the conclusion of watching that. And it made me feel a lot better. But also, these businesses need to revisit the definition of multitasking and that being a requirement for people because it's not humanly possible to do all of those things. If anything, it can lead to a lot of issues,
Yeah.
which I feel like we see, obviously. And that's why we're here.
Not only the memory thing, but yeah, projects probably will fall through the cracks here and there if you're expecting one person to do like all this different stuff with minimal help, which a lot of places don't give a lot of help, as in like training or oversight when you come in. I read one job description when I was looking up those like examples of multitasking
Mm-hmm.
that basically said, you'll be great for this job if you don't need much instruction from other people. And if you're comfortable making decisions with little information. So basically, they were going to be like, hey, we want someone that we don't have to talk to or explain anything to whatsoever, but you're going to do all this stuff and we expect it to be done well without us really explaining to you what it is we want. If you could just like read our mind and then do all the things for us, that would be great. And that's where I feel like a lot of younger corporate companies or like startups, that's kind of how they treat employees.
Yeah.
The apps or technology or whatever service they're developing is usually pretty interesting,
Yeah.
but their way of like bringing people on and managing them is awful. and then the whole company can be awful.
I agree. And that's like my hesitancy to even go back into the workforce right now and just being more mindful of what I'm applying for instead of doing the whole, what was that term you use? Is like send and release, or what was it? It was like something funny.
The spray and pray.
Yes, your spray and pray method.
It's a gun firing technique.
Your spray and
The
pray
spray and
method.
pray. Shotgun.
You know, other people use it in other ways, but
Ew. Our podcast already has an explicit rating for the amount of times we say shit and fuck, so
so might as well add that one in there, huh?
we have made it clear this is not for children.
Yes. But I will say for myself, I'm more of a go with the flow, feel it out.
You want to evaluate the potential for this actually working out first.
Yeah. I want a long-term relationship.
Yes. If we're doing like a dating app analogy, I'm the person just swiping right on every job to see who bites. That's how I do job hunting. And maybe I should stop.
And I'm over here overanalyzing their profiles like, huh, I don't like the way they use this word. You're asking for what? I don't think we'll be a good match. It's like, I didn't think I would be this way, but I do have standards. Ooh. That's funny.
Yeah, so what the explained episode was saying was basically like what we think of as multitasking isn't really multitasking. It's just basically rapidly task switching because you're not essentially doing multiple tasks all at once. It's just like the computer. You're just dividing your mental processing power between all these different things that you're trying to do, but you're still only focusing on one thing at a time. You're just changing back and forth rapidly. But then that changing takes up a ton of mental energy because you're actually like shifting and then shifting and then shifting. And I think that's why people get exhausted. Like there's some days where I get exhausted at work and I really haven't accomplished much, but I've been going back and forth between like 5 different projects all day because something is urgent to someone and someone else and whatever. And I thought it was good that the documentary mentioned it's not really our fault for kind of falling victim to that. It's that we are social creatures. And
Yeah.
as employees, we're still like somewhere innately driven to be part of the team and be part of the group and try to help the other coworkers that are like dependent on us.
Yeah.
So we give into the multitasking expectations because you don't want to be that one person holding up a project, let alone if it's something tied to money and you're like that one person holding up however many $1,000 and spending whatever. But like,
Yeah. That episode in itself brought up a really good point of like social satisfaction, and we feel more satisfied in a work environment when we also get that positive feedback that we accomplished X amount of tasks in a short period of time. However, we're human. There's only so much we can do. And, I remember the expectation while I was in the military of, okay, you need to wake up at 0400, go to PT with your shop, try to be better than everybody else during PT, then go home. I used to get dressed and then 45-minute nap. Prioritize a nap over anything before I start my workday, which was around 0700. And then on top of that, I'm also doing all the things they're asking me in the shop environment. And then they also want me to work until like 9 p.m. every day or 8 p.m. every day, depending. Oh, and don't forget you need to eat when you get home, make your dinner. Plus, make sure you're eating healthy. Oh, and also you need to work out. Oh, and make sure you get your education in between that. You need to get education. And it's just like, I don't even know what I'm doing at work half the time.
it's a lot. I don't know how much people fit this into like that kind of schedule in the military, but just knowing how things are culturally, I would imagine that as a female also, you're like to some kind of degree supposed to look nice too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. And make sure, everything is nice and like your face looks nice. Like you have girls putting on full faces of makeup, plus doing their hair every day, plus going to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. And if they're like moms, they're taking care of their kids, plus they're working. I don't know how they do it. I don't think they sleep, to be honest.
I don't know how you could. Like, how else would you make time for that other than not sleeping?
I feel like the mental exhaustion of just the level of expectation we have in our society for women, in a sense of like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Like, just the whole second shift thing and how women are supposed to do more around the house and then also have a career.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel that. I would like to think that there are more guys stepping up to do more work around the house, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's expected that women always just do all the work around the house, but I think that's still the tendency to let that happen.
Yeah. Like, I know for me, in the culture I grew up in, like my grandfather, he would always work until like, I think it was 2 p.m. and then he'd be home. And then my grandma, she would get off at 4 and then come home. He's sitting there at home, just chilling, drinking his beer, and she would start cooking dinner immediately. And I was like, huh. Like, I mean, I'm Hispanic. So in Hispanic culture, like another thing I pushed away from was like making his plate first, like fuck it in our house. Like, once we make dinner, make your own plate. I don't care what you want. I'm not going to cut your crust. Like, I'm sorry. That's just not who I am as a person. I can't do all that stuff. I'm not going to baby my husband. That's not who I am. If you do, cool for you. I love him. We both bring things to the table though.
In this scenario, literally.
But I don't know. I feel like maybe that's where I got the idea of that from, the expectation that women are supposed to be doing all of these things. Like even the time I have now and the guilt I feel some days where I'm just sitting at home with my dog and waiting for a job. I'm like, am I doing enough around the house? Am I cleaning? Is the laundry done? Sometimes I'll even leave the dishes in the sink and then my husband comes home and he does the dishes anyway. And it's like, I'm so sorry. I'll be better. And he's like, what are you talking about? You do more than enough for us. And I'm just, I'm not used to that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I have a good one, that's for sure. But like, you know, as a woman, do you understand like that level of like guilt that I'm trying to explain? Like, if you just don't even accomplish going to the gym in the morning, like, I feel
Mhm.
so fucking guilty because I'm so
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah, I do definitely feel that way. I guess I always thought that was just like a me thing, but maybe it's just something women are more prone to in general. I don't know if there's any men listening and you feel prone to that. Tell us.
Yes,
Spotify has a comment feature now. You can leave a little comment. We will see it.
we would love to hear your feedback.
But like, yeah, I definitely am kind of always trying to do something. Like we talked about this. I have a very hard time just relaxing and not doing something quote unquote productive at the same time, which is then not relaxing. But it's kind of like if I am not doing something of value, like moving the needle forward in some way, whether it's I'm getting laundry done while I'm watching TV, I'm going to fold it while I watch the show, I'm being productive. I'm like earning my place to just exist as a human.
Yes.
And I haven't seen a lot of men behave in a way that suggests that is a concern to them. I'm not in their heads, so I can't say for sure, but it does seem like something that seems to affect women more, just
Yeah.
anecdotally from what I've noticed.
I would say we're very expressive about it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's honest, but I think it's also because men, unfortunately, it's getting better now, but grew up with not expressing their concerns as much as women do,
Don't talk
you
about it, you're
know?
whining. Even when women talk about it, oh, you're whining. And it's like, sometimes I'm just telling you how I feel. Like, I'm just talking about this thing that is affecting me.
Yeah.
And if you're a guy and you want to talk, like, I do think men are told, suck it up, like, blah, 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 blah. I think
Yeah.
we're permitted to talk about it, but then we're chastised for it. In some ways, they're not even allowed to talk about it.
Yeah. Depending on the subject, I feel like there's a level of timing too.
If you're at the bar with your boys and it's like, yeah, I had a hard week, like, it has to all be very masculine, it feels like.
Yeah. Rather than just sitting there, just like, bro, I'm like going through it right now.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. I would love to hear from a male's perspective on what burnout actually would feel like for them too, to be honest.
Yeah. And do you feel like when you come home from work that you have to do shit at home too? Do you feel like your days on the weekends, there are things that you absolutely have to get done in order to manage your time throughout the week?
Even like if you have kids plus you work, we have all of these expectations, whether it's inside a work environment to get all of these tasks done. But then you also go home and you have to do all these other tasks. Like, I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine today. Hi. She's going to be hearing this episode. She's pregnant, and her and I were talking about the whole guilt thing because she wants to go back, whether it's full time or part time, once she does have the baby. And she's like, I just, for me as a person, I can't imagine myself just sitting at home all day, but also the cost factor of
Hmm.
having someone to help like take care of my kid while I'm at work. And I'm just like, girl, like I get it.
Childcare is wildly expensive.
It is, but the expectation of doing both because she doesn't want to lose like her sense of self with her job.
Hmm.
She loves her job, but she was expressing like, I kind of feel guilty about going back once I have a kid because I plan to do that. And it's like, you should never feel guilty about stuff like that, man. It just, it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have kids. I assume it's balance like anything else, but I don't know how to balance decisions like that, which I think is part of the reason I don't want to have kids because I just can't make that choice.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for parents and mothers, especially. There's another, it's not the same series of Explained, just the original Explained show. I started
Hmm.
watching an episode of that too, talking about the gender pay gap and like how it's not so much that women get paid less than men. I mean, statistically, we do, but it's more so that mothers get paid less. Because if you're a woman who can just focus on your career nonstop, you don't lose too much momentum. And we're still paid a little bit less than men overall, but
Yeah.
it's not nearly as huge of the gap that exists between like men of any kind, married fathers, whatever, and mothers.
Right.
And I'll have to look up the statistic, but I heard that when men get married, they're more likely to get promoted, make more money, and be viewed more favorably at work. When women get married, they're more likely to earn less, either from not working, working part-time, or not getting promoted. And like women suffer when they get married and have kids, men excel. And it's all because they're married to each other. Like women marry men, support the man, raise the kids, do all this stuff. And the guy's like, oh, I don't have to deal with this anymore. And he just focuses on work and excels. And women, they're like, oh, I have this person that I have to take care of who means a lot to me. And I'm doing it out of love and blah, 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 blah. And then you like your career is a lot harder to fight for because these other things just honestly feel a lot more important. And I feel like that gets exploited a lot.
I mean, me personally, I do express that a lot. And it's not even like a burden thing, it's just a realistic thing.
Oh, about getting married.
Yes. Like the last job I had, they were just like, well, we'll see how long that lasts for. They're like, oh, we're so excited for you. And then you come back and then they're just like, oh, it's just the first year in. You're just in the honeymoon phase.
Your coworkers said that to you?
Yes.
Oh, that's mad unprofessional. When you said that last time we recorded, I thought you were just talking about getting shit from like quote unquote friends and family or like people you know, not coworkers. That's really not okay.
Oh, and they were saying it in a jokingly way, you
Okay.
know? Like, ha ha ha, girl, we'll see how long that lasts for, That's the honeymoon phase. Like, it'll die just like my ex-husband. Like, well, okay, like, thanks, Patricia. Like, fuck. Like,
With
that
Patty,
wasn't really her name, but
I figured. I mean,
like,
I'm divorced and I wouldn't put that shit on someone else's relationship. That's a her problem. That's a them problem.
that's what I'm saying, bro. But what you said is very reflective of what I experienced recently with my last job because both of the managers that yelled at me on the phone were divorcees. And the one, literally the first weekend of working, she like sat down and talked to me. And, I'm here. I will do my best to listen and hear people out. But
Mhm.
like, what you're not going to do is sit here and tell me how all these things did not work in your relationship. And then you're going to try to reflect that onto my new marriage. Like, I love realism, but I don't like it when people put some negative energy on me. You know what I mean? Like,
I do. What I don't understand is why this conversation was happening on the clock.
girl, when I tell you, people just talk like even the meetings, like in the beginning, we wait for the person who's
Mm.
hosting the meeting to show up or whatever. They would talk about all kinds of stuff, and I'm sitting there just like,
Isn't that backed up somewhere?
could be. I don't know. There are some rumors that the phone calls were recorded, others weren't. I don't
I
know.
bet they were. Honestly, like if you were on company software, just assume your shit is being recorded. I didn't have it happen with a video call or anything like that, but one company that I worked for, this was pre Slack being a big thing and stuff like that. But we had like an instant messenger thing just for within the company, and people would message on there all the time or whatever. And then, like, occasionally, one of the bosses would say something about a conversation that someone had had
Mm-hmm.
in private DMs on the thing, and we were kind of just like, oh, like they're definitely watching this. And
Yep.
so then I took it upon myself to warn the new hires when they would come on. I
Good
would
for
be like,
you,
hey, on the download, don't send anything on this app because they do watch it. Just text.
bro.
If you want to tell me something that's like you're having an issue with someone at work, don't send it on there because they'll see it and then they'll try to like gaslight you ahead of time about it. Just like text me, here's my number. Like, let
You're
me
a
know.
real one, man. I remember actually getting a brief like that from a few people from the last job I got, which I should have known was a red flag. And it
Yeah.
was, hey, if you're going to talk to this person, just watch what you say to them. And it
Mhm.
wasn't just one person who told me that, it was management who would tell me that sometimes too. It was like two other counterparts. And I'm just like, why do you still have this person working here if she's such a problem?
Right?
Like, I really want to know. That's for a different tea time, though.
Yeah. I think we should do an episode on red flags specifically. Like,
Yeah, it's red flags in a work environment.
and like how can you spot them in the job ads? Because I think I've gotten decent at doing that as well. But
Yeah, like the multitasking thing.
yes,
Definitely a red flag.
if I see something about thriving in a fast-paced environment, I'm like, well, what's the salary? Because maybe I could stick that out for 6 months and like double
Yeah,
my savings.
exactly.
I'll still consider it, but I'm gonna know what I'm getting into.
Oh, that's actually really funny. Oh,
Uh,
that's great.
I know one thing we talked about when you were telling me about that show that really stood out to me is there is like this hypocritical expectation that you are going to multitask all these different things throughout the day at work while simultaneously being exclusively focused on work. God be damned if you check your phone and someone sees you in the office. You're just like the worst, laziest employee ever. You have to be super focused on work 8, if not more, hours a day. But then at the same time, you can't just focus on one task. You have to be dealing with like all these different things. And it's completely on each employee individually to manage how they handle all that. And then, like, the Mind Explained brought up France back in 2016 passed laws basically holding employers accountable to not contact their employees after work hours. No emails, no text, no shit like that.
That was a shock factor for me too. When I saw that, I was like, healthy work boundaries, baby. Why
Mhm.
can't we be more like that?
It was the right to disconnect law, is like colloquially what it got called. But yeah, the fact that like employees deserve to have a better work-life balance and that the employer is the person who's obligated to stop pushing work into their employees' personal lives. Whereas here, the employer isn't held accountable at all. They'll just push, push, push all they want. And oh, employee, you who has no power and I can fire you whenever I want, you're the one who's responsible for just saying, no, I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to have work-life balance and just hope that doesn't come back on you at work. Like the power dynamic is not in your favor as the employee, especially if you're working for an at-will company. Again, they can fire you for any reason. Why isn't there anything to like protect against stuff like that?
I think it's just like you're just rolling the dice, those companies that say like we're family, da,
Red
da, da,
flag.
da, da. If they give you a free t-shirt and a jacket, it's a red flag, baby. Like,
I don't mind the swag and the jacket. It's like, how are you framing that? If you're like, hi, I'm glad that you're working for us. Here's a jacket and some food. cool, we're good because you and I have the same understanding of this.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, we're family now, here is this rite of passage hoodie that we all get when we join. Like, no, that's a cult. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, literally, you're stuck. You're in there. It's scary.
And once you're in, it's hard to get out because I did work for a company like that. That was like, oh, we're all family, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, that works in their favor when it comes to trying to get a raise because, well, you wouldn't ask, your family for more money, would you? Even though you're doing a lot more work than some other people. It just completely exploits employees. And yeah, that's my rant about family, the F word at work. We're not going to use that anymore. Don't do that.
Yeah, no, it's a red flag. I agree. That is the biggest F word. But yeah, those episodes definitely opened my mind in a different way for sure. It really did give me a lot to think about the whole like notifications and stuff and how you want to like clear them all out. And then you're back at it again with, is it an attention span thing or is it just work overload? Are we just not managing our time wisely? I don't think it's managing time.
I think it's environmental because I think the fact that the environment is so interrupting and stimulating and there's just so much going on and so much expected all the time, I think it becomes like a habit. And then you're used to task switching all the time. And then that becomes like the default. And then when you have to focus on something for more than 7 seconds at a time, then that feels hard.
I agree. I think it's a lot at once.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do we have our happy facts for today?
What is your happy fact?
I'm going to go with something pretty in front of my face, and that is the 250 podcast downloads that we got. I am so hyped and so happy about that to wake up to that this morning. Thank you so much to all of our viewers who are actively listening. We hit 100 followers on Instagram just recently. So last week we did. Like, that's a big deal for as long as we've been doing this for. I don't know. I feel really good. I just love doing this with you. It's so fun. I can't wait to start like interviewing people too. I feel like just to gain more perspective.
I think that's a great win. And yeah, I love doing this. It is also nice to see that people are listening to it.
Right? I mean, the feedback from just seeing that too is just like people actually do like listening to us. That's kind of freaking dope, man. I'd like to know what they do and don't like. I am open to constructive criticism. Please don't be mean if you can avoid it.
Constructive.
Constructive, not demeaning.
Yes.
Yes.
Be nice. If you're listening to this, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Take like 15 seconds, click the 5 stars, and rate us.
Every tiny little bit of support we see from you guys means more to us than you know. Bye, friends.
Bye, friend.